Have you ever felt like you were living out a story you didn't write? That your struggles, your triumphs, even your dreams follow a script older than you, older than any book or film? From Harry Potter's hero's journey to the dark descent of the Joker, our stories are full of patterns, archetypes that speak to something deep inside us. But where do these patterns come from? And why do they resonate so powerfully? To answer that, we have to begin with a man who dared to explore the deepest layers of the human mind. Carl Gustav Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist born in 1875, wasn't just a pioneer of modern psychology. He was a cultural cartographer, mapping the terrain of the unconscious long before we had the words for it. A one-time collaborator of Sigmund Freud, Jung eventually broke away, carving his own path through the labyrinth of the psyche. At the heart of Jung's work was a bold idea that within each of us lies an unconscious world, rich with symbols, dreams, and ancient patterns. He called this the collective unconscious, a shared psychological inheritance that connects all of humanity. It's this concept that introduced us to archetypes, universal figures like the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, and the trickster. Not just abstract ideas, but living forces that shape our thoughts, behaviors, and stories. Jung called his system analytical psychology. And unlike Freud, who focused on repressed desires and neuroses, Jung was interested in wholeness. He believed our purpose wasn't just to be functional, but to be whole, to integrate the different parts of ourselves through a lifelong process he called individuation. Today, in an age of mental health awareness, mindfulness, and personal development, Jung's theories feel more relevant than ever. His ideas ripple through the way we talk about healing, purpose, and even storytelling. Whether you're watching a blockbuster film or diving into a graphic novel, chances are you've already encountered his influence. But Jung wasn't just a thinker locked away in academia. His ideas seeped into the fabric of modern culture, and that's where our story really begins. In the next section, we'll explore how Jung's archetypes have shaped the stories we tell, from epic adventures to psychological thrillers. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Imagine sitting in a movie theater, the lights dim, the screen flickers to life, and within minutes, you know who the hero is. You sense the villain, feel the stakes, and anticipate the journey. But how do you know? How is it that stories from different cultures, times, and genres can feel so familiar? Carl Jung believed it's because we're not just watching stories, we're participating in ancient psychological patterns. He called these patterns archetypes. Archetypes are not fixed characters, but universal images and roles embedded in the human psyche. They're the hero, the shadow, the mentor, the outcast, the essential roles we find in myths, fairy tales, religions, and modern entertainment alike. Let's start with one of the most powerful archetypes, the hero. In Jung's view, the hero symbolizes the ego, the part of us that confronts challenges, leaves the comfort of home, and returns transformed. Think Luke Skywalker, Frodo Baggins, Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen. These characters mirror our inner journey toward growth and individuation. We see ourselves in their struggles and triumphs because deep down we're all trying to conquer our own dragons. Then there's the shadow, perhaps the most compelling and misunderstood archetype. The shadow represents the darker parts of ourselves, our fears, insecurities, repressed desires. In storytelling, this often appears as the villain or antagonist, but it's not always someone to be destroyed. In Jungian thought, the shadow must be confronted and integrated if we're to become whole. Look at Batman and the Joker. Batman, the conscious persona, controlled, principled. The Joker, pure shadow, chaos, destruction, unpredictability. Their conflict is more than just good versus evil. It's a psychological war between repression and raw impulse. This dynamic is why The Dark Knight resonates on such a deep level. It isn't just a comic book movie. It's a Jungian drama in disguise. And what about the Anima and Animus, Jung's archetypes of the feminine within men and the masculine within women? These show up in countless films and books, often as the mysterious, otherworldly love interest or guide. Think of Trinity in The Matrix or Tyler Durden in Fight Club. They don't just push the protagonist forward, they awaken hidden aspects of the self. Even supporting characters often fall into archetypal roles. The wise old man, like Gandalf or Dumbledore, offers guidance rooted in ancient wisdom. The trickster, like Loki or Jack Sparrow, disrupts the status quo and brings unexpected transformation. But these archetypes aren't just storytelling devices, they're psychological tools. When we engage with them, we access something within ourselves. That's why we return to these characters again and again. They speak the language of the unconscious. In many ways, the entire entertainment industry is a canvas for Jungian psychology. Writers and directors, knowingly or not, tap into these timeless patterns to connect with audiences on a deep, emotional level. It's not manipulation, it's resonance, a reminder that we're all part of something bigger, something shared, and nowhere is that more powerful than in our relationship with the unconscious mind itself. Up next, we'll dive into Jung's concept of the unconscious, and how pop culture has turned this hidden world into a cinematic playground. Narrator's voice. Beneath our waking thoughts, below reason, language, and control, lies a vast realm, Jung, called the unconscious. Not just a storage bin for forgotten memories, but a living, breathing force that shapes our choices, desires, and fears. To Carl Jung, the unconscious wasn't the enemy. It wasn't a place to be avoided. It was a realm to be explored. And in the world of pop culture, this exploration has produced some of the most iconic, unsettling, and thought-provoking works of art and cinema. Take Inception, for example, a film where dreams are not just personal fantasies, but battlegrounds for identity and manipulation. The deeper the characters descend into their unconscious layers, the more distorted reality becomes. Sound familiar? That's pure Jung. The unconscious isn't a tidy basement, it's a wild landscape full of symbols, contradictions, and hidden truths. In Inception, the characters struggle to distinguish dream from reality, just as Jung suggested we struggle to separate our conscious self from the deeper drives of the psyche. Or consider Black Swan. Nina, a ballerina obsessed with perfection, slowly unravels as her repressed desires and fears claw their way into consciousness. The film blurs the line between hallucination and reality, sanity and madness. But at its core, it's a Jungian drama. Nina's descent mirrors the clash between her persona, her polished public self, and her shadow, the raw, chaotic side she's been trained to suppress. The more she denies it, the more it takes control. These stories aren't just psychological thrillers. They are journeys into the unconscious, the very thing Jung spent his life mapping. In Jung's view, the unconscious isn't only dark, it's also creative. It speaks in symbols and images, often through dreams. He believed that dreams are messages from the unconscious, offering insights into our deeper truths. That's why dream analysis was such a key part of his work. And today, it's not just psychologists who are listening. Artists, filmmakers, even musicians are mining the unconscious for inspiration. Think of David Lynch's Mulholland Drive or Jordan Peele's Us. These works don't just tell stories, they unravel them. They force viewers to confront the surreal, the symbolic, the unresolved. That disorientation is the point. Jung believed transformation begins when we step outside the comfortable boundaries of consciousness and listen to what the unconscious is trying to say. Even modern trends like mindfulness, shadow work, and inner child healing carry echoes of Jung. We're no longer afraid to look inward. Instead, we seek understanding, of the emotions we suppress, the parts of ourselves we hide, and the symbols that haunt our dreams. In the world of storytelling, Jung showed us that what's hidden often holds the most power. And once you see the unconscious as a force, not a flaw, you begin to understand why the most haunting stories are the ones that reflect something buried inside us. And that brings us to Jung's ultimate goal. Not just understanding the psyche, but transforming it. In the next section, we'll explore individuation, Jung's blueprint for becoming whole, and how this life-altering journey has become a recurring theme in the most iconic stories of our time. At the heart of Carl Jung's psychology is a single powerful idea: individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Not just a self-improvement project or a spiritual quest. Individuation is the integration of all parts of the psyche. The conscious and unconscious, the persona and the shadow, the masculine and the feminine, the known and the hidden. Jung believed that only by facing and embracing our internal contradictions can we move towards psychological wholeness. And this journey, this messy, courageous transformation, has become one of the most resonant themes in popular culture. Take The Matrix. At the beginning, Neo is a disconnected office worker, living a hollow life under an illusion. But as he wakes up, literally and symbolically, he begins the process of individuation. Morpheus tells him, "You have to let it all go. Fear, doubt, and disbelief." Neo must shed his old identity, confront the terrifying unknown, and integrate his full potential to become the one. Or look at Fight Club. On the surface, it's a story about chaos and rebellion, but at its core, it's about a man splitting into two selves, the suppressed ego and the wild, unchecked shadow. Tyler Durden is everything the narrator wishes he could be: free, bold, primal. But as the story unfolds, the battle isn't between two men, it's between the fragmented parts of one psyche. The destruction is not senseless. It's a symbolic dismantling of false identities to make way for authentic integration. Jung would have seen this not as madness, but metamorphosis. Even children's stories carry this theme. Think of Simba in The Lion King. He runs from guilt, shame, and identity, trying to forget who he is. But only by returning to the past, by confronting his shadow and reclaiming his inner authority, does he become king. He doesn't just take a throne, he becomes whole. Individuation is not about perfection, it's about truth. It's about peeling back the layers of who we think we should be to discover who we really are. In today's world, with its pressures to perform, conform, and idealize success, this message is more important than ever. That's why these stories resonate. Not because they're fantastical, but because they're real, psychologically real. Whether we're watching a sci-fi thriller, an animated classic, or a gritty drama, we're often witnessing the same essential truth. The hero's journey is a mirror of our own. Jung understood that real transformation doesn't happen on the surface. It happens in the depths, when we turn inward, confront the shadow, and integrate the wisdom of the unconscious. Only then can we live fully, authentically, and freely. And this isn't just theory or metaphor. Jung's ideas have reshaped entire industries, from therapy to screenwriting, from art to artificial intelligence. In the final section, we'll look at how Jung's legacy continues to evolve in the 21st century and why his insights into the human psyche are more relevant today than ever before. Carl Jung passed away in 1961, but his ideas, they're more alive now than ever. In a world saturated with images, identities, and inner conflicts, Jung's theories have quietly become the scaffolding for how we make sense of ourselves and our culture. His fingerprints are everywhere. In modern psychology, therapists draw on Jungian concepts like the shadow and the Anima and Animus to help clients understand their inner contradictions. Jungian therapy, dream analysis, and shadow work are booming, especially in holistic and integrative wellness spaces. You'll find his influence in life coaching, trauma healing, and even the language of everyday self-help. Phrases like inner child, authentic self, and integrating your shadow all trace back to Jung. In video games, developers craft narratives that echo Jungian themes. Think of the Persona series, where characters literally summon parts of their psyche to battle inner and outer demons, or Silent Hill, where environments morph based on repressed trauma. These aren't just horror mechanics, they're symbolic explorations of the unconscious. In music, artists are embracing their archetypes, from Beyoncé's Sasha Fierce persona to Kanye West's God-complex metaphors. Performers often embody exaggerated personas that reflect internal archetypes. The hero, the outlaw, the trickster. Some, like Kendrick Lamar, confront the shadow head-on, inviting listeners into deeply introspective spaces. Even social media has become a Jungian theater. Instagram stories, modern-day masks or personas curated to reflect how we want to be seen. But behind them, shadow traits emerge too, through cancel culture, projection, or online outbursts. It's a digital drama of consciousness versus unconsciousness playing out in real time. And let's not forget the growing influence of Jung in storytelling and entertainment. Writers and filmmakers are more aware than ever of the power of archetypes. Screenwriting guides like The Hero with 1,000 Faces, inspired heavily by Jung, remain foundational for crafting stories that resonate on a mythic, psychological level. That even AI and machine learning researchers are taking cues from Jung's understanding of symbolic logic and pattern recognition. There's a growing fascination with how archetypal structures might inform human-computer interaction, art, generation, and even the ethics of artificial consciousness. So why is Jung still so relevant? Because he gave us a language for what we feel but can't always explain. He didn't just study the mind, he illuminated the soul. He taught us that we are not puzzles to be solved, but stories to be lived. That within each of us is a cast of characters, a map of mysteries, a shadow to be met, and a self waiting to emerge. In a culture obsessed with speed, surface, and perfection, Jung invites us to slow down, to look inward, and to honor complexity. Whether you're watching a blockbuster film, analyzing your dreams, or scrolling through your feed, Jung is there, in the symbols, the patterns, the whispers beneath the noise. Carl Jung didn't just influence psychology. He shaped how we tell stories, how we understand ourselves, and how we search for meaning in the modern world.